Hi, folks. Dan Bird here on March the 5th, and the market is just barely hanging in there. We're going to take a look at it. It's trying to make a comeback, trying to climb back up onto the cliff, but can it do it? We'll find out. As always, I am not a financial advisor, so this is for educational purposes only, and you have to understand your own trading style, make your own investment decisions. Let's take a look at what happened today. Well, the market bias is also down slightly, just a little tiny bit. We'll look at each of these two. And before I jump into the S&P, I want to address a comment that somebody made on the channel yesterday, was that they had heard me say 5850 was a line in the sand, and then they were confused that now it's not a line in the sand. So I want to try to explain that. And I've said this a number of times in the past, but I understand how that confusion could come about. One of the things that you have to understand about technical analysis is that it is not exact. The lines on the chart are not absolute numbers. The market has no idea where I'm drawing my lines, but of course other analysts do because they draw them in the same place. But the market doesn't know. So that means it could go to 58.40 or 58.60 or 58.45 or anything like that. It's a general area. It's not an absolute number. So let's take a look at the S&P with that in mind, and I'll show you what I mean. So here's what it looked like today. And today we had a nice bounce back. So what I did on this chart instead, this red and green line here is the 5850 level. That's the one that I said was the line in the sand. And one thing that you should notice with that level, and remember, it is not an absolute number. It's just generally that overall area. But if you look at that line at 5850, this is where it was resistance. It got rejected, and then it went through it. And then it came back and tested it, 5850. And then it went a little higher. And then it came back to 5850. And then it went up, but a little bit lower this time, and it came back to 5850. And then it went up, and it came back and dropped a little below 5850. But it's still in that 5850 area. And then it went through it again. So it's testing it all these times right here. Went through it again, made another new high, pulled back a little bit, made another new high, and then started down this channel right here. And got to 5850, and the next day it bounced off of that. And the very next day, it came right back down to, guess what? 5850. So look at all of these areas that are aggregating around the 5850 level. That's what I mean by a line in the sand. I do not mean the exact number 5850. I just mean that that is a clear support and resistance level that the market has tested over and over again. That's what a line in the sand means. It means if it breaks through it decisively and continues to go down, then we probably are headed much, much lower. But this is the general area. So you can see an open gap back here. It actually closed the gap here, but that is the general area that the market is looking at. And notice yesterday it came down, went below it a little bit, but closed right at the bottom of it. Today it opened at the same place and went right back to the top of it. And by the way, it's traveling back to the top of the channel line. So still 5850 is still 5850 area. I want to clarify, I don't mean exactly 5850. I mean the area around 5850 is the line in the sand. And that's the one we have to watch. And there's no telling when it will break or won't break it. If it goes back and makes a new high, then we have a series of higher highs. And then all this 5850 area is left in the dust. If it drops through it, I mean, right now we have an equal low. We don't have a lower low yet. But if it drops through it and closes down here, again, down near the bottom of that channel, then we will have a lower low. And that then will begin the series of lower lows, maybe in coupling with a lower high. So that's the thing that I think will happen next. I think we will go up and make a lower high. So we had been making higher highs. 1, 2, 3. We made an equal low. We have not made a lower high yet. I think that's what we're in the process of doing. And then we will come back down. And at that point, if the market is certainly in a downtrend, then we will break that 5850 area, not exactly that number, but that area, and likely head lower. But there's nothing that says that has to happen. This is not a prediction. I don't make predictions. Technical analysis is not about being right. It's not about making predictions on what's going to happen. It's about risk management. It's about understanding what typically happens in markets and stepping to the side when you see something that has happened in the past start to happen again. So just want to make that clear. It is not about being right. I don't care if I'm right about this or not. I do care if I am not losing money. That's what I'm doing. So wanted to just clarify that. Anyway, that's the S&P. Let's look at the NASDAQ 100, and also had a bounce today. So kind of the same thing. There's the channel right there. There's the area. There's a clear support line down here just below 20,000. So we're almost to the top of this channel right here. So this is a decision point. If it breaks through, then it could be headed up here to make a lower high, most likely. If it breaks through this line here, then we'll be making a higher high. But right now, the jury is out of which way it's going to go. But good news is yesterday started it. I talked about it last night that it looks like a bounce was coming. And today it might have started. We'll see how far it takes us. I think we're still probably in a downtrend for the next few weeks. Okay, Bitcoin. How does that look? Bitcoin today had a nice little bounce. And now we have a symmetrical triangle. So if you want to understand these patterns like symmetrical triangles, I did a Technical Tuesday on patterns. You can go back and look at that. We talked about symmetrical triangles in that. Right now it is moving towards the center, so it's creating lower highs and higher lows at the same time. And it will start to move towards the center of this, and then it will break out one way or the other. And it's not really implying which way the breakout is going to happen, although the momentum is really low right now. So it's below zero, which confirms a downtrend from all the way back here. So the confirmation of the downtrend happened right here. It went below the 21-day moving average on this day right here. So it's implying that perhaps the breakout will be out of the top of this resistance line right here. And then it will have to get back to this resistance at the top. So we'll see what happens. But if what I think is going to happen the next few days, and the implication is that maybe the jobs number might be okay on Friday, but I think that's going to be the deciding factor on Friday. We likely will have a little bit more upside tomorrow. I think there is some short-term momentum moving us higher. So we'll see what happens tomorrow. While I'm here, let me look at MSTR, MicroStrategy, and it had a great day today as well. So MicroStrategy had been in a downtrend, and it's sitting right at the breakout. So that's the break point right there. So if it gets above that, right now it's at 306, 307, basically. So any break above, say, 308 or 310, it's actually above the 21 today. So that could be a good entry for MicroStrategy, which implies that Bitcoin is going to go higher, which also implies that the NASDAQ will go higher, because Bitcoin and the NASDAQ, as I mentioned before, is highly correlated. So all of the signs right now are pointing to a short-term rally. Don't know how long it will last. I think it probably will not make a new higher high, and that we at some point in the next week or so will roll over and start to go back down. But right now, everything actually is starting to look like we're going to get a short-term rally. You can see momentum. The momentum bars are starting to climb higher. They're a little bit lighter red right there. So that's perhaps good news. And actually the volume down here was pretty good too, above average on Bitcoin. All right, let's take a look at the market bias matrix real quick. And what I want to look at is the 10-year yield, first of all. 10-year yield ticked higher today. So if you remember the head and shoulders pattern that I pointed out, I said that this was the target for it, which is right about at the 200-day. Actually went below it, but yesterday and today it's coming back up, moving back up above it. So that could actually be good because that might have been signaling a weaker economy. But let's look at let's go to the charts page and look at the VIX. Let me see what the VIX is doing today. And the VIX today, I think, did come down, however, not below 20. Yeah, so there's the VIX. It's got a blue bar, which is neutral. Went down 6.75%. It's at 21.93, so right about 22. So it has not come back below that 20 area, back into the neutral zone yet. And the 12-month rate of change continues to go higher. So that is still implying that downside perhaps is still ahead of us. So we have to be careful of that. All right, let's take a look at one thing I want to point out. I mentioned this before, that I've changed a little bit how I create the Magnificent Seven here. So when you see something that has a box around it, that means it not just that the 21 and 50, 21, the 5 and the 21 crossed, but it actually means that the close was above the 21. So if it's bullish, that means the close today was above the 21, even though the 5 and the 21 may not have crossed yet. And we can look at that up here on the trend model. And what you'll see here with Netflix, you see that it just changed today to an up signal. And the up signal is right there, closed above the 21, even though the 5 has not crossed yet. So this allows us to take a look at changes that are happening a couple of days, 1 or 2 days before the actual short-term signal happens. So with that, today, for those that like to play options, especially short-term options, like a week or so, this might be a good time to sell a put. And you could sell, let me make that a little bigger. So if you were to sell a put, short-term put, maybe for next Friday, you could even do it for this Friday with 950, which is right on the 50-day moving average, by the way. So sell the put at 950. It's just starting to make a move higher. It has a green bar, closed above the 21. So likely is going to continue higher for 6 to 8 to 10 bars, at least back up here to the high. And then that would be a pretty safe bet probably on this. You can see the momentum is starting to turn back up. Never went below 0, so it's still in an uptrend. The ADX has not crossed, but it's starting to move in that direction. So this, yes, this is early, but might be a good way to sell a put on this for maybe a week from Friday. Here's the Keltner channel. You can see it's right in the middle. It clearly would be in the middle if it just went above the 21 day. So it potentially could get all the way up here to 1075 from 950 before you would think about selling, or 8 bars like I talked about yesterday. So 8 bars or the 3x ATR. 3x ATR is right in this area right here. So this is one way to play the Magnificent Seven, at least, using the website. And all you have to do is just, once a day after the close, just come down and take a look at what the Magnificent Seven looks like. If you just want to do these stocks right here, there's one right there that's ready to go. You could do it to the downside as well. So when the first column changes to bear, then you could play it to the other side. So that's the way to do that. I want to look at commodities real quick, just out of curiosity, because we will have, bring this back. So I'm doing control minus sign. For those that think that there's problems with the website and some of the menus are off the right or left side, just do a control minus or command minus on an Apple, and it will bring it back down again. So what you'll see here, I have not updated this, but I can do it right now on the fly. This gray area is what will be reported on in the next CPI report, which is coming out on March 12th, which is next week. So DBA is way down here. CRB is way down here. Copper actually is kind of in the middle, hasn't changed too much. But commodities are coming down. CRB is coming down. Gasoline right here is coming down. Oil's coming down. So I think we're probably going to have a decent inflation report next week. That would probably be good for the markets if we get a good unemployment report on Friday. So let's hope for that, because that might allow this rally to continue into next week and maybe even longer. But that's where we are right now. So keep an eye on that. Let me look at the dashboard. So the dashboard today, we'll start with equities. You can see Dow was up, S&P was up, NASDAQ was up, NASDAQ 100 was up, the VIX was down slightly. So all this is positive, implies a rally. The 10-year yield was higher, which means the 20-year bond was lower. Commodities we just looked at. Here's gold. Gold is still hanging in there, going up a little bit today as well. Silver had a really nice day. So silver looked like it outperformed gold today. And then on crypto, of course, Bitcoin, we talked about that. Bitcoin actually looked pretty good today. Ethereum looked good. XRP was up slightly. So all of the cryptos look pretty good. Let's go down and look at the sectors. So the top sectors were materials and industrials, but then we have the next three are all aggressive sectors. So the three aggressive sectors were actually outperforming today. So that's good news too. That should help the rally continue. Take a look over here at the advancer and decliners. Now, if you remember when I looked at this the last few days, the advancers was really red. Decliners were red too, but now we've got a lot of green and a lot of neutral. So very few decliners, but lots more advancers. So that's implying that the market is certainly ready to rally and might continue that rally. These are in alphabetical. It's not a by percentage. So that is positive. The main industry groups over here, materials, industrials, auto parts is discretionary, staples, materials, industrials. So a lot of materials and industrials today, with a couple of, actually only one, two discretionary sectors. And if we go back here on the charts page, we can look at materials. We'll look at the chart first. So you can see it had a nice little rally today. Still has a lot of work to do to get back above there. And industrials up here. This one came right down to the 200-day and looks like it's bouncing back up now. So that might be a place to find some good opportunities. Let me see what the industry groups were for industrials. Airlines, defense, building materials. Airlines, defense, and building materials. So let's look at airlines. There's the main stocks for today. See JetBlue, it's number 4 for the day, up 6.5%, just about. United, American, all of those were up today. Defense, Huntington Ingalls, that had a great bounce today because of Trump's speech last night, where he said we're going to start building ships again. This is the company that builds ships. So this would have been a good one to get into today. It's been selling off dramatically recently. Just the 5 just crossed the 21, so it might just be ready to roll. Sitting at 193 today, but that one might continue higher, especially if we get a rally. So let's see, where was I? Air Industries, General Dynamics, they also are in submarine building. So those all did pretty well. And then what was the third one that I mentioned? Airlines, defense, building materials. So Latham Group, Aon, Aspen. Not familiar with any of these names, but those are the ones in the building materials group. All right, so that's what that looks like. Pretty interesting, especially that Huntington Ingalls. I guess let me go back and look at that again. I want to see what happened on the 10-minute chart. So here's the 10-minute. You can see right from the beginning, right at the open, it gapped up right there and then went up the first 10 minutes and then just slowly went higher. So this one, yeah, of course, you couldn't predict what was going to be in the speech unless you were in Congress. Wonder what Nancy Pelosi bought yesterday. But anyway, that's one to think about. All right, so I think that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover today. Oh, I know. I want to also I'm going to do a scan. Let's go back to this chart here. Let's do the 5 crossing the 21. Now, I've mentioned this before, but the way this is structured is the 5 is below the 21, but the close is above the 21. So it's usually will give you something just before, about a day, sometimes 2 days before the actual cross of the 5 and 21. So let's see what we have. We've got quite a few names in here today. And one of those names is Netflix. Just like I said on the Magnificent 7 chart, it closed above the 21. So this one might be just getting ready to start to move higher. So for those that like to do short-term options, this is perhaps an opportunity with Netflix. NetEase looked pretty good. So it actually went above the 21 today. You can see that the 5 has not quite crossed yet, but all the momentum indicators on the daily are starting to move higher. What else is interesting over here? On holding, this had a reversal candle today, so I would probably stay away from that. That's a shooting star candle. Don't like what that looks like. Roku looks all right. Looks like it's had a huge downtrend, bouncing today with pretty good volumes. Just starting to turn on momentum. I like to see these bars turn to a light red instead of a darker red. And the weekly still looks like it's heading down, so be careful about that. But Roku might be a short term in the rally as well. What else do we have? That's about it. Chewy came back looking pretty good, had a hammer yesterday. So that's a bullish reversal candle. And today it took off, closed above the 21. So this one might continue, might get a little bit of a rally also. So what else? Confluent Software Group. Confluent also above the 21. It just like everything else, it's been selling off like everything has all week. And this is everything is pretty much oversold. So it needs to bounce. It's healthy for it to bounce. Doesn't mean it's going to go back to the high though. So you just have to be careful and realize that the high in this case would be at the 3x ATR level. So we'll see what happens. We'll continue to watch this. So that's it for tonight. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Let me know if there's any symbols that you want me to take a look at. Be happy to do that. And I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Take care.